and honor through web to be together. And sorry that I was not able to go to Czech Republic, to Prague, to my friends, the former colleague, Mr. Svoboda, but we have a plenary session. Yeah, that is the technique. Dear Mr. Lipavsky, dear Secretary General Pribal and Madam Baroness Cox, and of course, Mr. Svoboda, Excellencies, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's, as I mentioned, this is really an honor for me, and I was really happy to listen my dear panelists about the topic. And that's what I would like to underline, that in so many cases we will be, it's not a surprise, on the same line, for example, with Mr. Hefele, concerning the responsibility, what can be done. I will raise in my speech different times this question, but the question is first to me, not to you, and after maybe to you, but first I have to think about what I have to do, what is my own obligation. And let me emphasize that not only a co-chair of the working group for interreligious dialogues, but also in direct way on the ground, I had really opportunity to observe the situation concerning the religious freedom. And of my first personal experience was when I could visit Iraq early 2015, following the invasion of the Nineveh plain of ISIS. And I was shocked then by the facts of persecution. In practice, the Christian population almost collapsed in the country, failing by over 80%. Instead, 1.5 million in the year 2003. There is about, at the moment, not more than 200,000 Christians remaining. After decades of war and later invasion of ISIS. It was and it is an important breakthrough when the European Parliament, after very long debates, accepted the reality. Christians faced genocide there. The testimony on the ground enriched my knowledge and made me act, but of course not alone, with my colleagues together. And I feel really thankful because since 2015, my own country, Hungary, has also provided us great support in this fight. At the beginning, the Deputy State Secretariat was established with the profile directly responsible for persecuted Christian. And was such a kind of other countries in the Central European area, it was a backup. We are ready. We have to do something, yeah? We are already not beneficiaries of the donation. We have to do something. And of course, this Christian persecuted bridge to the persecuted people, it was a really opportunity for us in my country. Later, the Hungary Helps program, it is an agency managed to start meaningful solidarity with the Christians and suffering communities around the world. And I'm really glad to know, as I'm the goodwill ambassador of this Hungary Health program, can report on you on the positive developments. And since 2017, in 5 years, almost 100 million was dedicated to the program, and projects implemented from the budget enabled about 500,000 people in 56 different countries to stay in their homeland or return home, mainly in the Middle East, in Africa. In the frame of the scholarship program for young Christians, 200 students are receiving university education in my country, Hungary, and all arriving from the crisis regions. By conducting 200 support programs altogether, Hungary House has grown into separate special policy in our country. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, for us, the politicians' action against religious persecution is not important because we have a win from the political capital. Is an essential task for those who are standing up for human rights and religious freedom. And I all the time underline it is not an issue for religious people. It's a base for all people who cares about the human dignity. The European political environment is either hostile or simply indifferent towards this topic. And we see how this extreme neutrality leads to neglecting the persecuted Christians. However, there is a strong core team in Brussels, in the European Parliament, in my own group, in the European People's Party, that unites the acts for the persecuted. It's as necessary. Such a circle also operates in the European institutions as well. Thanks to this, compared to before, the European politics became more sensitive for religious freedom. The cause of the difference is often simply or routine. Therefore, this indifference is not the problem itself. It must be turned into political action. Since it's myself who became indifferent first, the action begins, as I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, with me too. In the political arena, primarily the Christian democracy must take responsibility in terms of religious freedom. If the Christian Democrats in Europe are not active enough, and not efficient enough, then we cannot expect this from anyone else, neither from the right nor from the left. And today, the persecution of Christians stands out in terms of the seriousness of the situation. At the same time, of course, it is important to deal equally with the protection of the religious communities in danger. This issue is, for me, of course, it's a personal matter, since I met the suffering on the spot in Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and some African countries, first of all in so-called Democratic Congo, or in Chad, or in Nigeria. And it became clear for me that I should draw attention to the persecution and act against the indifference. This is the first enemy. Difference, I consider it is a serious deficiency in Europe that attention is not the diplomatic actions. It was mentioned already by Mr. Hefele before. Regrettably, the securing the religious freedom is nowhere the fundamental topic of the bilateral relations with the countries which violate the human rights. In all capacities, we always emphasize that the distinction must be made between discrimination and persecution. Of course, both are wrong, yeah? But of course, it's a big difference, yeah? That's I'm discriminated or I'm persecuted. Unfortunately, this form of the religious persecution, which is supported and implemented by the state. However, in many cases, there are politically weak states that cannot or that do not want to prevent the religious persecution. And that's very important. In this case, we can support the states. We have to support the states if they are ready to help, but they're not strong enough. After, I would say, the decade of experience, there is one fundamental lesson for me in this term. The European or the border sense, the Western countries, this is a Western culture, unfortunately ignore mostly the sufferings of the Christians. In the contrast, the persecuted Christians still see their brothers and the sisters in the West. And the enemies, the ISIS people that time, they say, your brothers are there, you should go there. And if we in the West not stand up for these people, that we will deliver them to their enemies. That's the situation. And unfortunately today we have to draw the attention to the fact that the European Union does not stand up for these cases. The appointment, and in this circle we know about, but not everybody, of course, appointment for a special envoy It was before Mr. Jan Fiegel has a huge work in this capacity. But from 2019, and we know the COVID has a role, yeah? But the appointment of the special envoy for religious freedom outside the EU has not been resolved for 3 years now. It's a shame. Also, it was a very important positive achievement in the past years to show solidarity, not only these negative issues. It is absurd and unacceptable the European Commission did not appoint a new person in charge of the post during this time. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this day is really the Red Wednesday, belong to all victims, all victims. This memorial days turns indifference into something positive that opens action across the board. And thank you to everyone involved this. And let us commemorate about victims and family members who expect they will not have to deal with persecution alone on their own. And I emphasize, we have to emphasize that we must always talk about, do something for the martyrs and the relatives of the martyrs. Once again, the numbers of the religion persecution collected by the Aid to the Church in Need show us the seriousness of the today's challenges. Religious freedom is violated in almost 1/3 of the world countries. In these countries, 2/3 of the world's population lives. The 62 countries out of the total of 196 face very severe violation of the religious freedom. For the year 2021, the number of Christians who are victims of the high degree of persecution and disadvantages of discrimination more than 340 million. In addition, persecution extreme level is 309 million. But after just finishing my speech, of course, Madam Szymanski, we have much more talk about much more detail about the research of the Aid to the Church in Need report. Finally, the Christianity is the most persecuted religion, and we have to take the consideration. Until it is not our job to horrify the public in this matter. Instead, we have to ask ourselves today, what can we do and what have we to do? Thanks a lot. Thank you.